Hi, on the Woodpecker today, I'm making candy balls. Each year, I always make a special Christmas gift for René. Sometimes they're nicer than others. But I also make gifts for the other members of my family. And last year was no exception. I made a bunch of candy balls. But it didn't go as smoothly as I had hoped for. To make my balls, I begin by cutting a smaller piece of maple. Then I surface two faces. And then I make my first mistake. I cut two circles in a piece of plywood. So I'll have some patterns to make round balls. I've left small tabs around the circle that I need to cut now. My idea is to use those circles to cut my balls. After nailing the exterior pattern to the maple, I use a router with a template guide to cut part of the exterior of the bowl. After removing the first pattern, I use the other one and trace the interior circle. Next, with a Forstner bit, I remove the bulk of the wood. When I'm done, I screw the pattern onto the maple and clean the rest with the router. After removing the pattern, I cut around the bowl. Up until now, I thought that this was smart. But when I started cleaning around the bowl, I changed my mind. Needless to say, I had goosebumps after that. This was the dumbest thing I've done, at least last year. After that, I decided to stay on the safe side and cut a star-shaped bowl on the X-carve. But cutting a bowl on a CNC machine takes a lot of time, so I decide to cut a small piece of walnut and turn a bowl out of it. The piece of wood will be held in place on the lathe with this weird-looking screw. The first thing I have to do is to drill a hole in the center of the square. Next, I can screw the special screw into this hole. To help me turn this square piece of wood around, I knock out each corner. Then I insert the screw into the turning chuck, use the tailstock to help hold it in place, and turn the exterior round. Then I make sure the bottom is straight before making the hole that will hold the bowl to the chuck. When it's done, I unscrew the bowl, remove the screw, and chuck the bowl to the lathe. Then I can remove the interior of the bowl. When I'm done, I sand everything and apply a coat of beeswax. The wax is hand-rubbed for the bottom of the bowl. I now have my first star-shaped bowl. I can start a tree. But I have a major problem. This bowl is completely destroyed. The X-carve slipped and mangled all of the bowl's edge. When I look at the rails, I can clearly see that they're full of packed dust. This is not helping. After cleaning the rails, I restart another tree. This is working fine now. I thought that from now on, everything will be fine. But I was wrong. The router collet broke into 4 pieces. To continue, I must replace the router with the one that came with the X-scarf. Then I can continue the bowls. But this takes forever. So I jumped on the lathe and turned more round bowls. After a while, I have 3 turned bowls. This goes much faster than a CNC. But I don't only want round bowls, so I cut more trees. But this takes so much time and it's so noisy that I go back inside the house. The next morning, after cleaning up the dust, I can fire up another bowl. I went straight through the bottom of one of my mahogany bowls. I plug it, and here I try to remove the excess I left on my plugs. Okay, this is not a sweeping success. I also make the same mistake on the maple bowl. For this one, my fix works on the first attempt. As you see, a mistake can be turned into a design opportunity. But I wanted even more bowls. Oops, one less. I just need to turn another one. I also turned small boxes with a lid on top. So after turning a cylinder almost all the way, I turn it around and finish it. Clean the interior and apply a coat of wax. I want a walnut lid. I turn another cylinder with a tenon the size of the box and cut it off. Then I add a layer of paper around the lid's tenon, put it on the box, put everything into the lathe chuck, and give the lid the shape I want. When I'm done, I also wax the interior of the lid. I'm not done with my star-shaped bowls. But I'm done with all the trouble I had with the rest of the bowls. You remember the broken collet? I also had a router bit which snapped in two. But I don't want to lose all those bowls. So I drilled their interior with a big Forstner bit. Then a small one. Then I use a big pattern bit and remove the rest of the wood. The big bit can't reach the tight space inside the bowl, so I finish the job with a smaller one. In the end, I managed to save one bowl. I need to do the same for the others. When I'm done, I mark the center of the good bowls and carve my signature under them. Here you can see I managed to make 4 trees. With the 3 stars, I had no problem at all. But it's true the feeding rate was slower. But I'm not totally done. I need to cut around the bowls. The bandsaw couldn't cut more than that around the trees. I finished the job with the scroll saw. The last thing to do is to sand around those bowls. I finished the job with some files and rasps. Since I had a lot of misadventure with the X-carve, the top of some trees are a little bit mangled. So I cut them thinner. To be sure they're leveled with the bottom, I pass them through the drum sander. I also need to give a final sanding to all the X-carved bowls. The last thing to do is to apply a coat of wax. In retrospect, even if I had a lot of mishaps on a lot of bowls, the end product is not that bad. But the idea of the round pattern is not my shiniest moment. But even if I had 3 bowls that exploded in my face, I had a lot of fun turning all those bowls. After all, isn't it the reason why I built this shop? To have fun? So if you want to have a blast with me next time, just come back to the Woodpecker.